welcome to the Bipolar Yogi. Blah blah blah. So, this is the Bipolar Yogi podcast. You probably already know that because you've clicked on it, you're listening to it, and you're joined by me, the Bipolar Yogi, of course. Now, today I am talking to you on Christmas Eve. We are 3 or 4 days from the winter solstice. Now, I decided this year from the summer solstice that it was a good time to do an extended fast. So at the summer solstice this year, I did my first extended fast. And when I say extended, I'm talking more than 72 hours. I had previously fasted for around 72 hours max and never gone over that. And I decided that I wanted to include this in my practice and line it up with the summer solstice. So I did this year and I completed 90 hours fasted, which was just short of 4 days, which was super difficult. And at the time, the way that I did it was a little bit messy, you could say. I drank coffee, the refeed wasn't particularly good, I wasn't able to control myself very well, and I was also eating meat at the time, which was just a weird period. I was still putting things inside my body that I didn't want in there really at that time, relying on stimulants to kind of push me through the fast, and eating like an absolute king once I had finished the fast, just chucking stuff inside my body. So it wasn't done very well. Now, I have been fasting since Sunday, and I began my fast this time round. First of all, I did a fruit fast. So I just ate fruit for the day that I was going to begin the fast. So I had fruit for breakfast, massive fruit platter for lunch. I did a little ceremony as well. I kind of made an offering to the universe, to other beings, to animals, and left some of the fruit. And then that evening, I used Epsom salts to do a proper clean out of my bowels. I'd never done this before, and a friend of mine had recommended doing this. He recommended doing this before a dry fast, and I was umming and ahhing about doing a dry fast. However, it's not something that I've done before, and I'm not ready to do that. I tried it once from sort of sunrise to sunset. So I really like any Muslims out there that do the fast for their festival. I can't remember what it's called. That's quite bad of me. But yeah, hats off to you for being able to do a dry fast from sunrise to sunset during Ramadan. That's it. Sorry about that. It was there. So yeah, during Ramadan, obviously Muslims fast from sunrise to sunset, don't they? And fair play, because it's very difficult to go without food and water. So I took these Epsom salts, had a clean out that evening. It was about 1 p.m. that I stopped eating, about 6 p.m. that I did this flush out. But then I filled myself up with warm salted water after that, just to push through some cleansing water through the system as well, and ensure that I wasn't sort of dehydrating myself and being in a nutrient deficiency. So yeah, I'm on day 3 now, and I've also been exercising and practicing yoga and doing lots of walking. So my energy output has been pretty huge over these past 3 days as well. However, it's the cleanest fast I've ever felt. I haven't used caffeine. Lots of people use caffeine because it stops the feeling of hunger. It represses the hunger feelings, and obviously makes you feel like you've got energy. So I haven't done that. Yesterday I did 20,000 steps. I went on a big hike with my friend. She's also fasting, but doing it a little bit different. And I'm planning to break it tomorrow. So today I'm super low energy. Like I say, the past 3 days I've probably done about 50,000 steps. I went to the gym on Monday, practiced yoga twice on Monday, or once on Monday. Practiced yoga yesterday and went for a big hike, like I said. And then today I just practiced yoga in the morning, and I've sort of just been relaxing, not really moving, because yesterday evening I was so low energy. I was going to go to the gym and I decided against it because my body was just saying no, please, absolutely not. So I didn't go to the gym last night. Had an amazing sleep fasted is just unbelievable. I wake up quite often, sleep for about an hour or two at a time, and every time I wake up it feels like I've been sleeping for hours and hours and hours. So I really feel rejuvenated by sleep, which is great. So yeah, we're on day 3. We're just over, I've got my timer here, we're just coming up for 73 hours now. I want to hit 96, that'll be the longest fast I've ever done, and I plan to increase this every solstice really. Winter and the summer, it's a nice time for a reset. Obviously the days have started to get longer. The peak of winter has happened in terms of the slowing down, and now everything starts to slowly unravel again as we move towards spring, which is nice. And like I say, I enjoyed where it got me in the summer. I really went somewhere deep within myself in my meditation as well, besides the kind of things that I feel like I didn't quite do right. Meditation is one thing that I did, and that was great, and I went to really deep places, and I will talk about that on a future episode when I get to that place. But now let's go back in time again, and yeah, bring it back to my dad. I want to talk about my dad a little bit more, because his story, our relationship, our story is an interesting one. I've mentioned before on a podcast, he had serious drug use as a youngster. Heroin was his drug of choice. He was an addict, and that's why him and my mum broke up, from what I know from her. And then all through my childhood, she just fed me negativity, bad stories about him, all of the bad times basically, which of course that's kind of what, when you leave a relationship, especially, I don't know, maybe unconsciously, you're only going to remember the negative stuff, you're only going to remember the bad stuff. So that was kind of what I was fed. And I met up with him when I was 12 years old. He was homeless on the streets in London. I'd gone there, my sister had arranged it, she was looking after him, and we spent the day together, and that was my first interaction. And I mentioned before, I remember clearly him saying to me, "Do you smoke weed yet?" So he was still a massive stoner. He'd smoked weed all of his life. He absolutely loved it. I thought that was quite funny. I thought I didn't do drugs at that time. And then obviously as time has gone on and I've started to use drugs in my early teens, I thought, I'm kind of like my dad in that respect, except I'm not going to take it too far like him. I'm not going to start shooting up heroin, because that's a bit different, isn't it? Like, weed's one thing, but heroin, that's a whole other ballgame, and that's not something that I'm going to get involved with. So during his time in London, being homeless on the streets, he was going to a hostel, and yeah, basically he had I think one other friend of his that they both managed to get themselves back on their feet. They weren't using drugs, maybe smoking weed every now and again, and having the odd drink, but that was about it as far as I was concerned. And then he got himself a flat. So that was a really big thing. He got a flat through the council, which is great actually, because a lot of people say like homelessness in the UK is a problem, it's difficult to get on your feet, it's difficult to get a house and stuff, but my dad managed to do it, so fair play to him. I don't really know the ins and outs of how and what the process is and how easy it is for everybody. But yeah, that's the story of one man who was a heroin addict who managed to get himself clean and get himself a flat. And yeah, it's quite sad because obviously his drug use is like it's a self-inflicted illness. Okay, so like any illness that he had, like he had poor breathing at that time, and so he was basically using the welfare state, which is great and also like not great at the same time. Like great that he had that opportunity, but also why did you get into that situation in the first place? And that's an interesting story as well. So that brings us back, like he grew up in America, and my grandparents immigrated there when he was around 6 years old. He grew up, my grandfather was a plumber, a Scottish plumber living in America, and I believe they did quite well for themselves. He had a pretty good business. My dad tells me that he just grew up with a credit card. He could just spend. Money like was nothing to him. And yeah, he got into drugs at a young age, similar to myself. He remembers buying his first ounce at, say, the age of 12. So yeah, even younger than me, and he's smoking weed and partying. He loved to party. And I mean, still does. He's an absolute... He just loves to party. He's the heart of the party. That's who he is. That's his soul. And yeah, as he grew up, he was so I've been told a very good golfer. So he tells me, you know, it's like I don't know. Some stories are a bit like, are these? I don't know, but these have been repeated by other family members anyway. So he tells me he's a good golfer, and I do believe him. And he's basically 17 years old, and he was going for some kind of golf tournament where he was looking to be scouted for kind of like the PGA Tour or something like this. Big golfing events, big golfing people were going to be there. And he was driving, and he had his best friend in the car with him, and they were at a crossroads. They drove through, and a car smashed into the side of them, on the side where his friend was. And it was a drunk driver. It was a woman who had been drinking. She ran a red light, crashed into the side of him, and I believe he was in hospital for quite some time. Broke a lot of bones in his body, was in a lot of pain, and his best friend died. He died in the car next to him. So, as you can imagine, that's quite a traumatic event for anybody to go through. And from that, those times in America, this must have been back in the 60s, 70s, they would just pump you with opiates. So, pretty close to heroin, I believe, from what I understand. He's getting in hospital, and he soon became addicted in hospital. And this is interesting because I'll tell you about my hospital experience in the future and how it kind of relates. But yeah, he basically came out of hospital. His best friend's died. He's broken all his bones. His golfing career's out of the window. And he's now basically addicted to heroin, which has been sort of unconsciously manifested through the medical system. So, in one way, self-inflicted. In another way, it's kind of a number of traumas that led to that happening. So he's got himself a flat in London, thanks to the UK government, the UK welfare system, and whatever help he got through homeless shelters, all of that kind of thing. So I decided to go and meet him one day, go and stay at his while I was 14, 15, and I took my friend down with me as well. I was like, my dad's a massive stoner, we can go down for the weekend and smoke weed with him, this is going to be really cool. And obviously I turned up and I'm like, yeah, I smoke weed now. Like, let's get high together. I thought that was really cool. A way that I could bond with my dad, who was absent during my childhood. And it was chill, we just got stoned. You know, just sat there, ate food, watched TV. It was pretty normal stoner stuff. And like I say, his health has not been great. It's a lot of breathing issues. He couldn't really walk far, and London was just not the best place for him with all of the pollution. So yeah, we didn't really go out much. We just sort of stayed at home, went out and picked up some weed and got some food, ate some biscuits, blah blah blah. Had a cool time, chilled time. Thought, this is cool. You know, this is what I do with my dad. Wow. So fast forward a few years maybe, and I was just going to meet him every now and again, checking in, we'd stay in contact and stuff. It was pretty cool. And finally, a few years later, he got into contact with some old friends from Bournemouth. I think he knew these people from years back, and they'd said to him, "Oh, there's a flat down here. You know, you can come and rent a flat down here." So he ended up moving from London to Bournemouth. He was very fortunate in that respect, and it was a massive move and very needed. A big change of scenery from London, centre of London, to the seaside, and it was Poole actually, so just outside of Bournemouth. But his friends were in Bournemouth, and it's interesting because at this time, my sister, who is my full sister, who I grew up with, she sort of didn't really want anything to do with our dad. When I started getting in contact, she was like, no. She still had bad memories from when she was younger. I think he promised to take her to Toys R Us one day and never turned up. Those kind of things, you know, similar to the story that I told about shopping in Scotland that I remember. But the difference between me and my sister is that I don't really... I know how to let go of the past. I know how to not hold on to things. And she couldn't at the time. So, yeah, it came to a point where I went to her and said, look, just go and see him for yourself, meet up with him, and see what you think. And so she did, and she really got on with him. Believe it or not, they're very similar as well. So that was good, and she actually ended up moving down to Poole near Bournemouth with him. So that was great. That was really good for her. And I would go down to Bournemouth every now and again, and like I say, my sister was living there, so she built a social community. She started to make friends down there and everything, and it was nice. And so for me at this time, there was loads going on in my life. I mean, from 16 years old, I got my first moped, and that was a great new freedom, the next freedom that I had. Obviously at the time I had a court case going on, but you know what, I could go around on my moped now, and that was great. So yeah, one day that all came to a halt, and I went for a ride with my friend. Now he was on a bigger bike, he was on a 125. We're driving down this road, right, and it's a single track country road, just like near where I lived, and we're driving along, and I'm going like 39 miles per hour. That was the top speed for my moped, and it was like nee, nee. And I remember like just going along, and I'm wearing shorts and t-shirt. It's a nice hot summer's day. Next thing I know, I'm driving along, and bam, I get literally rugby tackled off the bike. And like a split second before this happens, I just see this deer's face. And if you've ever seen the film Open Season, right, that's all that I could see. This deer, it looked frightened, and it was just staring at me in the eyes as it just jumped out of the bushes and rugby tackled me off my moped. I went flying. I can remember flying through the air. I landed on my elbows, right, with my feet in the air behind me, and I literally skidded along my forearms. Obviously, luckily I had a helmet on, but my whole arms were ripped up, massive road rash. My legs were completely fine because they were in the air the whole time, so that was quite interesting. And I stood up afterwards. I was still conscious, and I just took my helmet off. My friends just watched the whole thing behind me, Can't believe that. He's just watching the whole thing. Yeah, I don't know. I wish he had that on camera, to be honest with you. And then there's a passerby, and my friend runs over and says, "Ring the ambulance." One of our other friends rings my friend, and he says, like, "What are you up to?" And my friend just responds, "He's just been fucking hit by Bambi." So that was a funny, interesting story. I had a lot going on when I was in my teenage years. And in terms of my drug use, I started using cocaine as well. And that was another drug that just sort of came onto the scene, and it was like, everybody's using it. It's a pub drug. It goes hand in hand with drink. So I just sort of started using it, and I had close friends that were selling it, so it was easily accessible. Often a lot of friends would just be sharing it. It's interesting when you have lots of drugs, you always want to share them. You don't want to sit and do them on your own. So it was very easy to be doing drugs every now and again, drinking, whatever, smoking weed all the time. And I'd take trips down to Bournemouth, down to the pool, stay at my dad's with my friends, and it was all fun and games, really, which was great. And then I had a bit of a wake up call. I used to be very angry. I used to be a very angry person, and I don't know, I guess maybe because of some of my childhood. But as I got older, into my teenage years, I started going out, pubs, clubs, late teens, like 16, 17, and me and my friend, we would get into a lot of fights. We quite enjoyed it. We would go and fight people, and it would be fun and whatever. I don't know, we just thought it made us seem really hard and really cool, but obviously we weren't. Anyway, there was this one time we went out in Bournemouth, and I actually went out with my sister. It was around Christmas time, I think maybe even Christmas Eve actually, when I was 17, and we were out with a load of my sister's friends, and there was a girl that sort of was into me, and she was chatting to me. She was my sister's friend, and I was kind of like, okay, like whatever. And I was really drunk, and I was getting into clubs at that time. So by that time I'd passed my driving test. I'd passed my driving test as soon as I turned 17, and so my ID was a full UK driving license. Now, a lot of bouncers are fucking stupid. I'll tell you that for nothing. They are dumb as anything. And so I was just going around clubs, and they would ask for ID, and I just handed them my license that said I was 17. And they just looked at it and was like, "Yep, that's you in the photo," and gave it me back. A lot of them did not even check the date or anything. Absolutely bloody useless. So I'd get into a few clubs. There was this one place where they do have, and I think a lot of places have them now, is ID scanners. So the bouncer scans the ID, and it checks the ID and checks the date and everything for them, because they're so dumb that they... I'm not going to hate on all bouncers, sorry. I know some bouncers. I have friends that are bouncers, so not all bouncers, but I've had bad encounters. And this one place, they scanned the ID, and it just said 18 with a massive cross through it, and the guy just turned to me, looked at my ID, laughed, and was like, "You got to be 18, mate." And I was like, "Yeah, fair play." So anyway, we're getting into clubs and stuff, and this girl's kind of into me, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And turns out she has a boyfriend, right? So from what I remember, I'm absolutely wasted, and her boyfriend turns up, and I go outside the club. I'm outside the club. This is from my foggy, drunk memory. Probably on drugs as well. And he's there, and I'm giving it, fucking come on then. Ready to fight him, giving it the all big un. So I think me and him start scrapping, and then next thing I know, just from the side, slap, somebody comes and cranks me in the face. I drop to the floor. It's complete completely by surprise. And yeah, basically his big brother's come along with a bunch of his friends, and they literally kicked the shit out of me. And I was on the floor. I had about 3-4 lads all older than me, and they were just kicking my head and stomping on my face. So I had to go to hospital, and I ended up in Bournemouth A&E, and they'd broken my nose, bloody and bruised. I had to call my dad at like 3 o'clock in the morning and like, can you come and pick me up from Bournemouth A&E, please? And he wasn't mad at all. He was just like, oh, you know, just doing your thing, whatever. So yeah, then I remember spending that New Year's, that was, New Year's, 2015 into 2016. Spent New Year's with my mate, and we got absolutely wasted. I was waiting to get an operation on my nose, and I remember just like absolutely blocking it, because we were doing so many drugs, which is just disgusting, isn't it? Absolutely disgusting. I can imagine that now. Then, you know, I was a bit sad about that, and that being, yeah, don't know how to. So that experience actually ended up being the last time I saw my dad. Well, the last time I saw him alive. So the end of the following month, I was babysitting. I used to babysit for people in the local village. I was the local babysitter. I was great at it, and I think I got that from having younger brothers. But I got a phone call. I think it was from my sister, and it was all a bit weird, a bit strange. That something like our sister in America had a message from somebody saying like, your dad's dead, basically. And yeah, my sister in the UK that was living with him, she rang me up and said, you know, our sister's got this message. I don't know if it's true. I don't know what was going on. But basically, Dad had gone to London, and he went to meet up with one of his friends. It was the friend that he was in the homeless shelter with, who both got out, got on their feet. And I'd met this guy before as well, and you know, we went and we had a drink with him. And yeah, at that time actually, my dad was doing drugs with him. I think he was doing a bit of coke or whatever, and I was just like, he was like, oh, look, these aren't things that you can, I can't introduce you to. Although I remember him giving me a rock of ecstasy once. I think it was the best ecstasy I've ever taken. But yeah, certainly not cocaine. We were having a drink and stuff, and like, I'd met this friend. So that was that, and yeah, he'd gone to London for the weekend to meet up with his friend, and yeah, never came back, basically. So that was really the end of an era. That was quite troubling for me at the time. I wasn't sure how to process it. I was at school. Remember the next day, I just didn't go into school. When I met my friend, I was trying to keep all of my emotion in. I bawled my eyes out when I heard the news and everything. But my friend, when I met him, he was more sad than I was. So I think he's a very empathetic person, and so he couldn't imagine like having something like that, a bombshell like that dropped on him. And I stopped going to school for a bit and just started smoking weed more and more. It was like I didn't want to do anything. I was just processing grief, basically. So that was the end of January, and his funeral wasn't until March. So I had a big month of just not really knowing what was going on, and he died in London. His girlfriend at the time, which was like phenomenal that he even had a girlfriend. He met this woman. She was absolutely great, and they met in Bournemouth, and they just hit it off. I remember being at his one time, and I think it was the first night that they like properly met. And he would go around to his mates at the weekend. Every Saturday they would all meet up older group of people just hanging out, and they would smoke hash together, have a few drinks, really chilled, really nice vibe. And they met that night, and I think she gave us a lift home actually, because she didn't drink. And then we were sat in my dad's flat, and then he went out to say goodbye to her, and he came back and he said, I've never snogged somebody like that since I was 15 or something. And I just thought that was great. This guy's in old age, and he's really starting to come back to himself, really starting to wake up and realize that life is more than just shooting up in a car park or whatever he used to do. So that was beautiful. So his girlfriend at the time, and they had plans to get married in Florida, where he grew up and everything. But unfortunately, that just didn't make it there. So she felt like a lot of the funeral stuff was on her. There wasn't really anybody else in terms of family. I mean, I was only 17. My sister, not much older sisters in America and everything, couldn't really do a lot. So she wanted the body to come back so that we could cremate the body in Bournemouth and everything. So there was a whole malarkey about that. So I had to drive one day with my sister and my dad's girlfriend down to London to collect all of his belongings during this period between his funeral and his death. So we went down to London. We had to go to the police station, and basically we went into the police station. I'm 17 years old, and we asked for my dad's stuff, and he's got a load of belongings, whatever it is, his clothes, everything. And the key thing that stood out to me were 2 rolled up £10 notes. And my dad's girlfriend just turned and said, well, there's one for each of you, to me and my sister. So that was our great inheritance from our father, was a rolled up £10 note that he'd been using to sniff cocaine, which ultimately killed him. And at that time, I don't think I really processed that a lot, because I was still sniffing drugs myself and getting into trouble and all sorts. But just that moment is just to stand out. You don't really expect that at all. Maybe he was doing other drugs as well that night, but I think he was suffering from lung issues. Maybe he had cancer of the lungs as well. He was very ill, which was all self-inflicted. But again, his lifestyle wasn't contributing to getting him back into health, really. He was only 58, I think, late 50s. So I see some 58-year-olds now, and I think, wow, you're in good shape. And then I think of my dad, and I think of how he died at that age, and it could have all been prevented. It could have all been reversed. So there's lots of lessons in life. So that's kind of where we're at. And next week, I'm gonna take you on another journey into the funeral, because that sparked a whole new era in my life, as I came to know that I had an uncle. I mean, I knew this, but my uncle, my dad's only brother, came over for the funeral, and that sparked a big change in my life, real big change. So I'll continue that next week. Thank you again for listening. Thank you for being here, for supporting. If you've got this far, if you're enjoying it, please share it with your friends. Like it, subscribe. I'll be doing this weekly. I got to a point where I was questioning what I wanted from this podcast, and I got a little bit worried that if I was going to start a podcast and I wanted a podcast to be popular or to grow or to continue, then I would have to create a podcast that was going to continue, and that would prevent me from retreating from the material world and leaving the material world and going into my yogic practices like I want to. So that's why I decided to do a storytelling podcast of my life so far, and I think it's just going to be the story up until now that got me to where I am today. And yeah, once I finish it, I plan to basically retreat into the wild and go and practice being a yogi in the mountains, really escape the material world. So yeah, if you want to know about the journey that's taken me there, from sniffing drugs at a young age, nearly going to prison, my dad dying, then stick around.